Welcome to this week's edition of the Africa Today News Weekly Roundup, bringing you the biggest stories shaping the world, Africa, and Nigeria. I am Aham. First, the headlines. The UK bans foreign workers from over 100 job categories. Trump pushes strict voter ID policy, and the Pentagon name change. Venezuela's Maduro threatens to declare a republic in arms if attacked. Xi, Putin, Kim showcase unity at Beijing's Grand Military Parade. Nigerian FG faces backlash over new petrol tax, higher passport fees. Separatist leader Simon Ekpa jailed in Finland. Lionel Messi bids emotional farewell to Argentina fans with 2 goals. We begin with international news. The United Kingdom introduced sweeping restrictions blocking foreign nationals from filling more than 100 job categories. The Home Office said the measure, announced on Saturday, was aimed at cutting net migration and creating more opportunities for British workers. Prime Minister Keir Starmer framed the policy as part of a broader restructuring of the visa system to reduce dependence on overseas labor. In the United States, President Donald Trump has announced plans to sign an executive order that would make voter identification compulsory in all elections. Posting on his Truth Social platform, Trump said mail-in voting would only be permitted for military personnel overseas and those medically unfit to appear in person. Critics, however, noted that the announcement followed his unproven claims that the 2020 election was stolen. Still in Washington, Trump was also preparing to rebrand the Department of Defense as the Department of War. According to reports, an executive order was set to introduce the title on Friday, with plans to make it permanent through legislation. White House officials described the move as an attempt to project a stronger military image. Meanwhile, in Venezuela, President Nicolas Maduro has warned that he was ready to declare a republic in arms if U.S. forces moved against his government. Maduro accused Washington of massing troops in the Caribbean as part of what he called a regime change agenda. While insisting his country sought peace, he said Venezuela was prepared to respond to what he described as the continent's greatest threat in a century. And in Beijing, China staged a vast military parade marking 80 years since its victory over Japan in World War II. The event was attended by Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korea's Kim Jong-un, who joined Chinese leader Xi Jinping in a rare show of public unity. Tens of thousands filled Tiananmen Square as China unveiled new weapons, including laser systems and robotic vehicles, in a display that Western defense officials were closely analyzing. Now on to news from Nigeria and Africa. Controversy mounted over the federal government's plan to enforce a 5% surcharge on refined petroleum products, including petrol and diesel, starting January 2026. Retail outlet owners, civil society groups, and opposition politicians warned that the tax could force businesses to shut down and deepen hardship for Nigerians already struggling with high living costs. President Tinubu signed the measure into law last year under the Nigeria Tax Administrative Act. Also in Nigeria, the Immigration Service announced higher fees for standard passports effective September 1st, 2025. Under new rates, a 32-page passport with 5-year validity would cost 100,000 naira, while a 64-page passport with a 10-year validity would cost 200,000 naira. Fees for applications abroad, however, remained unchanged. Meanwhile, a Finnish court has sentenced Nigerian separatist leader Simon Ekpa to 6 years in prison for terrorism and tax fraud. Ekpa, who resides in Finland, was found guilty of directing activities linked to the indigenous people of Biafra movement and inciting violence in Nigeria's southeast. The court also cited violations of the country's legal code regulating the practice of law. Now on to the exciting world of sports. In football, Lionel Messi bid an emotional farewell to Argentina's home fans during his final World Cup qualifier in Buenos Aires. The eight-time Ballon d'Or winner scored twice in a 3-0 victory over Venezuela at Estadio Monumental. Addressing the crowd, Messi said, "Finishing his home career in this way was a dream come true." And that is it on this week's News Roundup. Join us again next weekend for the stories shaping the world, Africa, and of course, Nigeria. I remain Favor Aham.